Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Debby Kevin. Welcome to the show, Debbie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lori. I'm delighted to be with you today.
Yeah, shout out to our mutual connection, Carolyn, for introducing us.
Yeah, she is really fabulous. She does all kinds of book funnel fun things.
Yes. We can make her a sponsor of the show today. So she doesn't know. But so let me start with the question I love asking people, which is, I'm just curious about the values and beliefs you were raised with that led you to becoming who you did, especially as a young adult.
Yeah, I love that question. I would say in my family, and particularly in my dad, curiosity was a really prevalent value in our family. And I am insanely curious. I ask questions about everything, and I always feel as I get older that I'm running out of runway to learn new things, and there's always more to learn. So I would say curiosity was one, and integrity was another. My dad was a military guy raised by military parents who really valued keeping your word and being honest and forthright. And it does, I remember my dad saying, at the end of the day, I have to look at myself in the mirror and I want to be proud of that person. And so I would say those were two. And education. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but they worked hard to put us in private school so that we could have the best education wherever we lived.
Okay. Two questions there. One, well, I'm going to come back to this that one first. Did he say he was proud of you? He could look in the mirror and say he was proud of himself. Did he say he was proud of you, and did he teach you to say the same thing to yourself?
Oh, such a powerful question. The answer is no. And most of my adult life, I was hustling to get that "I'm proud of you."
From him, or from anyone?
Him. I was working a lot of, just wanting his approval and his love. He grew up. We had an interesting story in that he was put in an orphanage after he was born, and he was in an orphanage for 5 years until my grandfather came back from World War II and took him out of the orphanage. So I learned that much later in life. My dad didn't have. He had malformed attachment. So even though he felt it, and I knew later in life, like before he passed away, our relationship was the best it had ever been. I knew he was proud of me, and I knew that he loved me. He just wasn't capable of giving me that feedback the way that I wanted and deserved. But he felt it for sure. I learned the self-pride much later in life.
Yeah, I think a lot of us learn it much later, if at all. A lot of people never get to that point. And
Right.
What was there's something that inspired you to start thinking that you could say, "I'm proud of me" to yourself?
Yeah, that's such a good question because it really ties in also to my sabbatical story, because that was really the break in my patterns. And I gave myself permission to sit with the discomfort and to sit with me and learn how I needed to be for myself, and that looking externally for validation was never going to give me what I deserved and what I wanted. So when I started looking at it internally and looking at what I could give to myself, and it was a lot of reading and a lot of analyzing and a lot of working with other professionals, that I got to the point was like, it's nice to hear wonderful feedback from other people, but I know it within myself what I'm capable of and what I'm really proud of.
Yeah, and then it doesn't matter that if or when you get it from someone else.
Yeah.
From outside. Going back to that first question, because you said curiosity was another one of the the values and asking questions. What's been your experience in asking questions like throughout? Do you get, I mean, your experience in terms of like, do people get annoyed, or are they like, oh, I love your curiosity?
Again, it goes back to, it depends on the person. So I've had it both ways. I was married to someone who was abusive, and he hated my questions. He punished me for being curious. Whereas the people who know me best, they love my curiosity because I know a little bit about everything, and I'm always willing to learn more. And my husband now, we're both very curious people, and it's just a lovely, like, kind of going back and forth. And I really appreciate that he appreciates it, and I appreciate that he has the same level of curiosity. And so I think for the most part, it's one of my superpowers. It is being curious.
I love it. And I love that. I mean, I don't love that you were in an abusive relationship. My theory is that people who don't appreciate people who ask questions feel like they're being challenged, and that
Yes,
you're
I would say
challenging their
that's
authority
true.
or their power. And so they don't appreciate the questions. Because I'm thinking back to one of my first jobs after college. In fact, I think it was the very first job I had after college. And my immediate boss, I'm the same. I love asking. Like, I just want to know why. Like,
Yeah.
help me understand is more of it, not a challenge. But she would go on. She did not like it because she felt like it was a challenge to her authority. And it wasn't. It was really,
Yeah.
hey, I'm new to the work world. I'm just trying to learn. So,
Well, and I think it helps to put things in context, right?
Yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
I need to understand the big picture. And the way my brain works is I can see entire fields of how something can work or how pieces go together. And so giving me that structure to understand is really powerful. And then also, why are we doing it this way? I was a Six Sigma black belt when I was in my corporate job, and that's all about problem solving. And it's not, slapping a Band-Aid on something, but really getting down to the root cause of something and then fixing it. And so I worked for an electric company here in the Baltimore area, and we had these things that went on air conditioners that would cycle off and on when the heat was really high. So residents could earn money, but the power company could reduce the load on the transmission lines. And those often got carted away when new air conditioning units were put on. So we were paying money to people who didn't have them anymore. And so just thinking outside the box is like, well, we have meter readers that walk around these neighborhoods. Why can't we just add a question to their little handheld device to walk around and look at the air conditioner? Do they have it or do they not have it?
Yeah.
And it's a simple yes or no 2-second ad, and it saved the company in the first year over $6 million.
And you came up with that.
I came up with that. It was just like,
Wait, so did you get a bonus?
I did get a really good bonus that year.
Okay. Because I was kind of expecting you to say no. They just, yeah. Okay,
No,
cool.
I got it. In fact, every year I was in a Six Sigma black belt and in problem solving, I actually got really good bonuses because of the savings. And without people losing their jobs or making them wrong, it's like, well, what if we tried it this way? And why can't it work? Tell me why it can't work. Why won't this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love asking the question of how can it work? Instead of, oh, it won't work, or we can't do that. Well, how can we accomplish this goal?
Which is such an important question, because if you think about it in terms of, let's say, being in business, right? Being in business for yourself. I love when I find something that comes to me and it's like, this is something that I think is going to be really valuable. How can I fit this into my schedule? How can I prioritize it? How can I attract the income to pay for what this next growth opportunity is? So it's not a matter of, oh, it won't work now, but how can I make it work? What would have to happen in order for me to be able to say yes to this?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's a empowering reframe.
Yes. In any situation. Can
Exactly.
be applied. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned that you worked in corporate, but I remember from our conversation that we had before this that you referred to yourself as a corporate refugee.
Yes.
So what happened?
I had a great job.
Because it sounds like things were going really well. Yeah.
They were. I had a great job. I was a single mom. I was working about 70 hours a week on average. I had a lot of responsibility. I had 8 different teams that reported to me because I was reporting directly to a senior vice president and then the board. And we were changing every aspect of the company. I mean, literally how meters got read, how we transmitted energy, how we sold energy, how people got billed, every aspect. So we had 8 major projects going on, and I loved it. I loved the change aspect of it. I loved the bringing people on board and solving problems, and I loved it. And at the same time, I had 2 small children, and I was meticulous about being at work on time and then leaving at 4 every day. I wanted to pick my kids up from school and be home and have like a normal life. And then I would work after they went to bed. This was a pretty established pattern. And then my younger son in 2009 really had a break. He was extremely anxious. And the long and short of it is he was diagnosed with autism. And I would literally drop him off at school, drive 45 minutes to my office, walk into my office, get situated, and I would get a call. You need to come pick him up. So he's having a meltdown. He's having a panic attack or whatever the thing was of the day. And this went on for weeks. And we were seeing doctors, we were seeing specialists. Long and short of it was I needed to take a break from my corporate job to focus on figuring out how best to support him in a way that he felt supported and not that he was broken, because that was the biggest thing for me. Was I wanted him to know he was perfect exactly as he was. We just had to pull together the new tools and the new language and all of the new information. So I took a 3-month leave of absence.
How old was he?
He was 9.
Okay.
So I was in my mid-40s. So we're plugging along. I'm learning new skills. We're getting the support that we need. We've got things clicking along, and it's getting closer and closer to my leave being over. I started throwing up. I just started having headaches. I started not being able to sleep. I was so overwhelmed at the thought of going back. So I decided to not. I went back for 2 weeks to transition all the big projects, get people on board. Maybe it was a month that I went back. And so I gave my 2 weeks notice, and then I left. They replaced me with 5 people. Jeez. That's how much I was carrying, how much hustling I was doing. And I remember being so angry.
Yeah, I understandably.
Yeah. I was drowning, but I was the kind of person that I was going to get it done, and I was going to get it done to the best of my ability, and everybody knew it. My boss knew it. They knew that. And so that was really the first step. So that's, 2010, we're into 2010, and I spent really 2 years working with my son and being a stay-home mom and just really balancing all of the things that meant. And I was so unmoored. I didn't even know, what do I do next?
Were you thinking about figuring out what you were doing next, or were you so focused on helping him that it was, that was your main focus and not really concerned with what am I going to do?
It was a combination. I would say in the beginning, most certainly I was completely focused on him. And I started to look at my own health because he was doing some acupuncture treatments, which helped him with his panic attacks and other things. And I realized I was curious about that, so I wanted to do it. And I remember I went every week for 5 years. And it wasn't until the end of those 5 years that I actually had pulses, which is what they do to test the strength of the energy within your body. Everything was so blocked. And I would just come in depleted. And I say that my son saved my life, like that experience, because had I stayed on that trajectory, I would have had massive burnout, and who knows what would have ended up happening.
Right, how that manifests physically and mentally.
Yeah. So I did a lot of learning for him. I went and took a lot of programs. I got certified in occupational therapy techniques and all kinds of other things. And it's windy here.
It's all right.
Yeah.
This is life.
It's real life. But then I started taking classes. And one of the things that I've always been interested in was writing. So I just took a writing class for myself, and I loved it. And then I started writing some more, and I always believe that when we're ready and we're in the right mind frame, things come to us. And I got invited to submit to Stanford University's writing program, and it was to basically write and publish a novel within 2 years. Let me reframe that: not publish it, but write it and edit it and go through the entire process of creation and revision and all of that. And it was a really unique program, so I did that. And so that was kind of the thing that I did for myself while I was also focused on him. And I wrote a complete novel in those 2 years, started a second one, worked with some New York Times bestselling authors to review my book, and I was hooked. I'm like, this is everything.
That sounds fabulous.
It was so cool.
Yeah. I mean, what an opportunity to be in this program and then make those kinds of connections.
Yeah, it was really a powerful program, and it was all based on understanding how to put a novel together, how to tell stories. Mm-hmm. It was so interesting, though, Lori. At that time, I wanted to write, and I was writing, but I still didn't have the mindset or belief system in place within myself to believe that, I could make a living at this. I could do this for myself and for other people.
Did you?
Yeah.
The question I was going to phrase it is: you were writing, but you didn't see yourself as a writer.
Right. I didn't see myself as having a career path in this arena. Everything I'd done before was all left brain. It was using statistics and using, I was a CPA, like using numbers and data. And now we're looking at the complete other side. That being said, everywhere I worked, I was the one that started the company newsletter. I'm the one that did interviews of other people. I'm the one who helped them polish their presentations or edit their email to take out the tone, or clarify. So I was using these skills already.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look back in hindsight, you can see all the breadcrumbs. But at the time, when you're in it, you don't see it at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So where was the point where you became the writer? Where you stepped into that identity?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think I stepped into first being an editor, and then I stepped into being a copywriter. So not necessarily long form novels or books, but I really focused on, I'm really good with words, and I can really hone people's messaging. I can work with website designers. I can work with marketers. I can write. I ghost wrote thousands of blog posts over the years, marketing copy, and helping people just navigate those first few years of business and showing up as themselves. So again, it was that baby step in that right direction. And then people started coming and asking me, hey, I've got this book. Do you think you could help me get it published?
Okay.
It's like, I can do that.
All right. And
And
is
it's
that
like, not only can I do it, but I can do it in a way that was fun and educational. And I realized it brought in all of my skills, all of the problem solving skills, the process, the financial piece, the marketing piece, the editing piece, all of it was right there under my nose.
Wow. Okay. And so that's what you're doing now.
That's what I'm doing now. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. We talked too about, so where do you consider the sabbatical? Was that those 2 years when you were doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny because I was emancipated at 16 years old. So I have worked. I worked even before I went to college. I worked full time while I went to college. I put myself through, I was the first person in my family to go to college. So all of those things were, wasn't even in my family's perception that I could do this. So, so I've been working nonstop since I was 16.
Where did you get the idea that you could do it if it wasn't from your family?
Well, I'm the black sheep of the family. I think that's probably pretty obvious. And I definitely have always taken the road less traveled. And I also, it's interesting because even if I didn't grow up with belief from other people believing in me, I've always kind of had this belief in myself. Like I remember my mother saying to me, "You're making a mistake. You're going to end up on drugs. You're going to end up homeless. They couldn't even wrap their heads around. My grandmother paid for my emancipation. Like it was not a good family situation. And I never believed that. I never, ever believed that I wouldn't be successful.
Wow.
It was funny. I was talking with someone probably about 6 years ago. And she said to me, "You're a risk taker."
Definitely.
And I thought, no freaking way am I a risk taker. But then she said, "You moved out on your own when you were 16. You took a bet on yourself. You left a really good corporate job to go back to school and make less money, but put yourself through school. That took a lot of risk and courage and belief. You left a really great corporate job with a really good income, and you believed in yourself." So I am a risk taker.
Yeah. Yeah. And you listen to your soul, which is somewhat unusual because a lot of people are afraid to hear what it's going to tell them to do, which is often take a risk, and they don't want to do that. So they just shut it down. They're like, "I don't hear you. La, 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 la," like hands over their ears.
I love that you said that it was listening to my soul, because I've learned through this growth process really that I know what's best for me. And when I stop and listen, even if there's fear, and listen and just say, is this the right thing? And just trust that, just take that next step, the path will appear. One of my favorite movies of all time is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And when at the very end of the movie, for those who haven't seen it, Indiana Jones takes a handful, he's got to jump this chasm. There's this huge chasm and you can't see the path. So he takes some dirt and it's, trust, put one foot in front of the other, and he throws this dirt, and then the path appears because it's an optical illusion. And he just steps one foot in front of the other, and he gets to where the Knights Templar is waiting for him and had been waiting for 1,000 years. And it's just trusting that the path will appear if you just take that right step and you trust it's going to come.
You just made me think, and when we get to the end, the question I'm going to ask you, but you made me think of Pink has a new album out called Trust Fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that song, and I love
Pink.
Same.
I've listened to it on repeat many times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trusting. Okay. So I don't know where I like took us down a different path of you were talking about something and then I jumped in like I always do and I'm like, well, wait, I have a question. See, this is where the questions come in. So, I don't remember where we were, but pilgrimage was another thing we talked about.
Yeah.
Did you go? Yeah. Did you go on
you?
that? Or are you planning to? Because I don't remember.
So
okay.
Both. So back in 2015, I saw a movie called The Way, which was written by Emilio Estevez and stars his dad, Martin Sheen. And it's the story of a father and son who have a difficult relationship. And the son is traveling. He leaves this lucrative job and he goes traveling the world and he ends up in Spain. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but Martin Sheen, not Martin Short, very different people, travels to Spain and finishes what his son started. And I was so moved by this movie and this idea of this ancient pilgrimage. I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual. And I also believe that we're called to do hard things. And if we pay attention to those things, it's really important. And so I showed the movie to my kids. I showed it to that movie to my then husband. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. And my kids are like, that's great. Go do it. Just don't ask us to do it. And my then husband was like, you're never going to do that. You're too overweight. You're too this. You're not in good enough shape. You're all the reasons.
Thanks for the support, dude.
But yeah. And I just remember being devastated and like, I am going to do this. And so flash forward to 2016, I walk into this business mentoring program, big tables. I never met any of the people. I'm extremely introverted. So I just go right to a table and put my stuff down. And this woman comes over, puts her stuff down next to me. She goes, can I sit here? Lovely British accent. And we just start chit-chatting. I'm like, oh, what do you do? She goes, I take women on the Camino de Santiago. And I literally said, are you shitting me?
Yeah. You're looking around like, am I on candid camera here?
Right. And she's like, you've heard of it? Most Americans haven't heard of it. I said, yeah, it's on my list. And so I said, what's your website? I'm going to go look at it on a break. And I came back I had called my kids while I was on the break. I'm divorced by this point. I'm on the phone with my kids. I'm like, I want to do this. It's in the spring of next year. And they were both like, go, because I've been talking about it, you know? And they're like, we're off the hook now.
Yeah, she's got someone else to go with now.
Yeah. I said, where do I sign up? And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I'm coming with you. Like, where do I sign up? I'm signing up now. I didn't know it at the time, but I was her first client.
Oh, wow. That makes the story even better.
Right? Yeah. And so I did about 80 miles the first time I went with her. And then I wanted to do even more. So we did another 200-ish miles. So I've done in total 350 miles so far. So my husband and I, we turned 60 this year, and we're finishing the Camino, and we're walking into Santiago on our 1-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow. When's that?
It's October 4th this year.
Nice. So I have to tell you that this Camino de Santiago has come up in 3 different conversations in the past probably month or 6 weeks. And I wasn't really aware of it at all before that. And so I'm just questioning, because it's not something I'm really looking to do, but it has come up several times now, 3 times.
Sure. So it's calling to you for some reason.
It's interesting. It is definitely has my attention now.
It's truly. Yeah. And I love, so there's a bunch of different ways to do it. We actually carry a day pack, and all of our accommodations are booked in small bed and breakfast. So we get breakfast, lunch and dinner, everything's included. And we have a small suitcase that travels ahead. So we aren't carrying everything on our backs. So it's sort of, you get the experience, but you're not, camping out like you would be doing on the Appalachian Trail. It's a very different experience. And Europe does such a great job of having potable water everywhere. Like here, you've got to pack it all because you won't find water. But there on the trail, there's just water, and you're walking through little villages, and there's history, and it's a very personal experience. I mean, people are called to it for all different kinds of reasons. I think for me, I believe it just gave me space again to really be with myself and my own thoughts.
Yeah, and that is a sabbatical. Yeah.
It is, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going away for a month in 2018 was a really big deal because I left my business. You know, I had a son who was a senior in high school, one that was in college, and, I unplugged for an entire month, which again in this country is unheard of. And I came back truly a different person. Like I had too many things. I felt weighed down. I'm like, I need to just get rid of stuff and keep the things around me that bring me joy and serve purpose. But I don't want to be weighed down by the stories, by the experiences, by the heaviness that I'd had in my life. And it's like, where do I leave this? How can I be with myself and recognize the person who's traveled all these different journeys with me is me?
Yeah. And so you came back feeling like you had left what you didn't need any longer on the trail?
Yes, I really
that.
did. Yeah, I felt unmoored is what I came back. I just said, I don't fit in my life the way it was. I don't fit anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a very hard time because integrating the two became a challenge, but a well worthwhile challenge.
Yeah, I want to ask about that, and we don't have another half an hour to talk, but just like, what were a couple of the things that you had to do to integrate back into life here and to match all the pieces back together?
Part of it was, what did I want from my life? Like, I never really allowed myself to dream. It was always just reaction to something that was happening or saying yes to things. And so I learned to say no to more things. I learned as well to be super comfortable with my intuition and really listen, because I know that when I'm called to something, I'm going to do it. I physically got rid of a lot of things that I'd been moving. I grew up in a military family, and my dad sold all my childhood things without me knowing.
Oh,
and so I started to accumulate things, and I was holding on to things that I didn't really need, and my kids definitely didn't want or have any interest in. So I gave myself permission. When I came back, I pulled everything from storage that had gone from my big house to the place that we were living. And I just started going through things and releasing them. And it just felt so light.
Yeah.
And it also gave me permission to say, here's what I was doing before. What do I really want to be doing? And when I was really honest with myself, I wanted to work in the field of books. In all aspects, writing them, editing them, publishing them, giving women in particular a voice.
Yeah.
And so I think it was just that space, again, creating that space to go, okay, Debbie, you get, as far as we know, one turn around the sun, in our lifetime.
In this incarnation,
multiple
sure.
turns.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this incarnation, what do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah, that's such a powerful question, too, because most people don't ask themselves that. We go through the motions of doing the things that we just do every day without consciously thinking, what would I like my legacy to be?
Yeah. There's a quote by Mary Oliver. is what will you do with your one wild and precious life? And I remember reading that and thinking, we don't teach our children, and we weren't taught to value this experience. And you know, I there's a movie, Joe, I love movies, as you can probably tell, Joe versus the Volcano, where before he, you know, Tom Hanks is all in gray, the places he work in is gray, everything is gray, and then he goes on this grand adventure where everything is colorful, and he can't fit back into that gray small life. And so many of us live our lives in that gray, dull existence because our parents did it and our parents' parents did it, and we don't recognize that we can create anything we want to create.
Yeah, that it doesn't have to be that way, that there is another way. That's what we don't often recognize, is that there is another way, or there could be another way. And so, yes, so when you came back from Camino de Santiago, now you were in color. It's like the Wizard of Oz too, right? Remember, that was half in black and white and half in color.
Absolutely. When she got to Oz, everything was brilliant color. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Oh my gosh. I know we could just keep talking. And yet there is somewhat a self-imposed time limit on this show. My last question, as always, is what is your hype song?
Oh, my hype song is This Girl Is on Fire by Alicia Keys.
Yeah. All right. So we got to ask. Go ahead.
And I'll have a second one.
You can have a second one.
You're Fucking Perfect by Pink.
Yes. Also awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Those. Yes. We're putting links to both of those in the show notes. And then my last question before how can people get in touch with you is, when you were on the Camino de Santiago, is it silence, or are you listening to music or stuff? Podcasts or whatever?
I did listen to music one time because it was a super long day. I think it was a 24-mile day, and we were at the very end, and it just seemed like it was, and I had hurt my knee. So at that point, I put earpods in and listened to music just to get me those last 5 or 6 miles. Most of the time, no, it's you meet people from all over the world on the path, and you might start up a conversation. You might be talking with the people that you're traveling with. But mostly, I would say I was quiet, and I was introspective, and I was thinking, and I was listening, and listening in a different way. So listening to the bird calls, and listening to the rustle of the leaves, watching the bees flit in among all of the grape, because we were in the Rioja region, and it was harvest time. So there was just all kinds of activity, and so I think just being fully immersed in being present was what I really focused on.
It's like a full-time meditation.
It really was, because the walking sticks create a pattern, and so you have that tick, 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 which is just a rhythm that you get into, and it does take you away.
Man, fabulous. All right, so now, if someone wants to continue this conversation with you, how will they find you?
I love this. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me, and what a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. They can find me on my website, which is HighlanderPressBooks.com. Make sure you have the S on the end. And then there's a link to contact me. I'm on LinkedIn, Debby Kevin. Highlander Press is there as well. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So
cool. Yeah. I will have links to all of that also in the show notes to make it really easy for people. Debbie, thank you so much for joining me. I have really enjoyed today's conversation on Fine is a 4-letter word.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lori. And fine is a 4-letter word. Let's not have fine experiences. We deserve more.
Agreed.